Well, good evening, everybody. Bill, I'm sorry I didn't return your phone call. I was in a proposal and a final defense today, and then I had a meeting across campus. And then by the time that I realized I hadn't called you back, I didn't have any cell service.
I kind of figured it out, actually.
I normally am better than that, but
You're good. Appreciate it.
When I come to my condo, I don't have cell service for about 45 minutes. I leave Rutherford County, drive all the way through Polk from bottom to top, and come back into Rutherford up here at Lake Lure. And the 45 minutes that I'm off the air, they jam my phone. So I literally just got it back. My wife called 2 minutes ago. It took me, sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't come back the next day. It stayed off for right at 2 hours today.
No problem. Do I submit my OMA final to test stream?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent you a message on that one.
Okay.
Well, welcome everybody. Y'all are doing so good. I'm glad Bill said that. Y'all are, everybody's up to date. Everybody's ahead. I don't know. If y'all had a better teacher, y'all would really be something. I'm gonna tell you that right now, because y'all are just tearing it up. You know, I didn't even have to look to see if anybody had to get an academic difficulty report this week. What are you talking about? Everybody, y'all are all ahead. That's it. Maybe we could stop and help some of the others. We're so far ahead, but we won't. We're going to keep going. So this week is kind of a catch-up week on all the things that, you know, we don't have a lot of content this week, and I plan it that way because we need to cover the skip, we need to cover the cap, we need to talk about our case study, we need to talk about our last case study. So this is catch-up night. So don't hesitate to unmute yourself and talk tonight. So let's see who our stars of the week were. Everybody was a star last week. Did a good job on your case studies. You'll get better. I wasn't disappointed at all. You did a good job. And so I don't know if Macy's. Yeah, there's Macy. Macy's with us tonight. I like that Macy pointed out, and I think I mentioned this last week. If I didn't, I need to mention it again. Even good. School discipline, student discipline is about holding teachers accountable. You got to know that. You know, just like from our case study, if they don't write referrals, or if they write stuff, you know, a laundry list, they save up everything the kid's done since, you know, a month ago and put it all on one referral. You've seen it all. You know what I'm talking about. So discipline starts with making sure teachers understand due process, do the right thing, write their referrals. You say, well, you know, we want them to handle as much of it in-house as possible. Okay, but you need to define that for them. You say, well, that's kind of hard. No, it's not hard at all. You take that state manual and you go through it and you say, here's the things that I'd like for you to try to deal with at your level, and here are the things that need to come to me. Now, all the stuff that has to be reported by state law, that's what's going to come to me. Now, if you've got some of this little disruptive behavior, or, you know, those kind, anything aggressive or violence, got to come to me. But you know, you need to be very specific with them. But discipline starts with your teachers. If they're not where they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be, Lord knows what's going to happen. Or if they do crazy things. So that's a good one, Macy, reminding us that discipline starts with teachers. You got to hold your staff accountable to do the right thing. Michelle pointed out, and I love this. Where's this Michelle on here? There's Michelle. I love this one, Michelle. See, Michelle dug a little bit deeper on the legal stuff last week. I like that. She dug a little bit deeper. She looked into the origin of zero tolerance and found out, wait a minute, that was only for violent offenses anyway. It was never intended to be for things like turning your brother's homework in. And we've since the origin of that back in the 80s, it's been found to be unconstitutional now. But the original intent was not turning your brother's homework in. The original intent is for violent offenses. But even that's been held to not be valid in court. Due process overrules all that stuff. But again, it was never about a case like this. It's only a public safety issue, something violent. I like that Lakeitha said she had an opportunity to use some recommendations with her faculty from the app cell and the app tel. That's what you're supposed to be doing with that. Mary made a good point. We assume, we assume that because people know better, until we're school administrators, we assume that people know better, they'll do better. But Mary pointed out the absence of due process in and around teacher referrals happens all the time. And we know that. Again, that goes back to that notion of we got to hold our faculties accountable. I enjoyed reading Rebecca's competency folio. Did a really good job on that, Becca. That looked really good. Hers was a good one, or is a good one. Amanda pointed out that their cyberbullying, bullying policies are outdated. See, one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to try to make things checklists as administrators because we're busy. We got it. We got that policy. And nobody ever goes in to see, was that updated after 2001 when all that stuff changed? You know, there was an update to Title IX, much more far reaching in 2001. I know it was in the middle of pandemic and everybody was asleep, me included. But there was major revisions of Title IX that meant you had to revise your entire Title IX, all your sexual harassment, all that stuff had to be revised in 2021. And as she pointed out, theirs wasn't. So the biggest thing is, along with due process, and it's part of due process, on Title IX now, the person who does the investigation cannot be the person who makes the finding of guilt or innocence. Let me say that again. So you can't handle it at the school level. That's why your policy, if it's not been updated, it should have been already, is that school administrators don't handle Title IX cases. It has to be outsourced to an independent person. That's the law since 2021. It has to be outsourced. You can't do the investigation and be sitting in on it and supervise that person. You have a conflict of interest. And so that keeps that all that we'll handle this in-house stuff, which means we're covering this up. For those of you who aren't smart enough to understand what keeping it in-house means, that means we're covering this up. Can't do that by now. And so those three administrators from Bellingham, Washington, that were waiting on that criminal trial that they're under now for not reporting, that's what they're getting them on. Is they said, well, we handled it ourselves. Not since 2021, you don't. So they've been charged criminally, and that's the reason why. Amanda pointed out in discussion board 5 on discipline that you have to be non-biased when you're doing these things. That's part of due process, is you find what you find. Sparkle raised a question in database in discussion board 4, about schools not having policies. The district policy extends to the school. They don't have to have it. Remember, schools don't do policy. They just carry it out. It's like when somebody said, we might need to revisit the grading. No, we don't revisit the grading policy. We don't set grading policy. So, but the school ought to have it in their handbook, as Sparkle pointed out. That's a good catch, Sparkle. The school doesn't have its own. They have to follow the districts, but that district policy should be in the school's handbook. All those things, the grading scale, sexual harassment, bullying, cyberbullying, all that stuff should be in the handbook. It all should be there. Heather was talking about if she was was the supervisor of the field trip, about contacting parents. Be careful about contacting parents. Don't do that yourself unless your district directs you to do that and you have a written statement that they want you to read. I would avoid that at all costs. You do never speak extemporaneously. When there's an accident, you call 911. You don't try to call 911 first. And I've had people say, well, people in central office got mad at me because it was a bad PR move. They're asking you to sacrifice your career for their convenience. Now, I used to be one of them buttholes in the central office. I can tell you right now. But you do not sacrifice your career for their convenience. Oh, that's a bad PR move. It's not about PR. This is the law. I'm supposed to report this. And so, this notion, call me first. No, the law is very clear. You call 911 first, and then you contact the bus garage or the assistant superintendent, whoever is in the chain for your district. And you don't say anything to anybody until it's vetted by the public information office, period. And you definitely don't talk to parents. People say, well, if it was a minor, we'll just let them go home. Well, the next day, 17 of them showed up at the hospital, complaining of neck pain. And you can't claim that you didn't, that didn't happen in the bus wreck because you didn't call 911 and get any medical professionals on there. This is the truth if I've ever told it in my life. I had a bus wreck over in Delahaye Court in Charlotte when I was junior high principal. We had people came out of houses and laid down on the road and claimed that they'd been hit by the bus. Watched them do it. And if we hadn't had cameras, we had people that claimed they was in the car. And the car hit the bus from behind and claimed that the bus backed into them and ran over them. But the bus was running down the road in reverse and crashed into them. And people were laying all over the road claiming they were in the car. I cannot make that up. You call the police immediately. 911. 911. You call them and you don't talk to anybody. All right. All right. Terrence talked about what he found out when talking to an administrator about discipline, how much time it takes. Took 2 days to do an investigation, fight in the girls' restroom. And that one caught my eye, Terrence. So here's the deal. You better spend the time. That's the whole notion. It takes time. It takes patience. You got to be thorough. See, what happens on stuff like that is you just, you kind of put it on the back burner, or you say, well, I looked into it. I didn't see anything about that. And then, just like they did at Waddell High School, and then guess what happens later that day? A 17-minute video of the fight between about 40 people in the bathroom shows up on social media. And you said nothing to see here. Nothing happened. You didn't have time. You didn't do your due diligence. You asked a couple people and they said they didn't know anything and you went on about your business. That is exactly what happened. A 17-minute video of the awfulest, looked like something from the movies in the big bathroom locker room in the gym at Waddell High School. That ended, that ended that AP's career. That was the end of her that day. Nothing to see here. And it was all over social media. See, that's the piece you better understand is you better be thorough because somebody's probably filmed it. Somebody has probably filmed it. So you better be as thorough as you can be. But that's a good catch there, Terrence. I like that. I like that. It takes a long time, but you've got to be thorough. You've got to. And Terrence made a good point too. We need to be moving from the notion of discipline to restorative practice is what we're trying to do. We don't do discipline just for consequencing and punishing kids. We're trying to get them to do better in their behavior. Our whole job is to be champion for kids. We want them to do better. So we can't see discipline as just, judge, jury, meting out punishment. We're trying to amend their behavior, to get them prepared to, to be productive members of society. So that's a good catch, Terrence. I like that. I like what Shakita said in discussion board 4, that she was working with the resource officer. See, I like that. I like that. I like that terminology. you understand that that's your colleague. That resource officer you should have a collegial relationship with them, where you're working with them. They don't work for you, and they'll remind you of that if you go too far, trying to boss them around and be all, they're your colleague. They're there to help you if you have a collegial relationship where you're
Hey,
working.
how are you?
I'm doing phenomenal. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Roger, you might want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I got you, Roger. No problem. All right. So, but yeah, you need to build. I've told you before. You need to build a working relationship with your SRO. I like Melissa's that 6, all her scenarios in 6. That was a good post on the field trip. She had a lot of scenarios, different things that she's experienced. I like that one. A lot of wisdom in that. So thank you for that, Melissa. Jessica made a great point. Intervention includes behavior as well. We forget that sometimes on MTSS. It includes behavior as well. We need to remember that. And our last one for the day. Lillian talked about their district has a bullying hotline. Now, my takeaway, what I want you to take away on that is you need to know, just like I had you go and ask what kind of employee assistance you had, you need to find out all the different things, all the different resources that your district has on bullying, cyberbullying, sexual offenses, all that type of stuff. You need to find out what your district has. They may have things you're not even aware of unless you've been in an administrative role. So you need to make sure that you investigate what's all the stuff that's out there. And so that's a good idea. Our postmortem on last week's case study is that if you've not shifted your lens to administration yet, last week's was tough on you. You know, I mean that, you know, you're looking for some wiggle room for that teacher. There was none. Teachers do bad stuff like this all the time. You just have to understand that. If they didn't, we wouldn't need school administrators. We'd just have a bunch of teachers running school if they all behaved themselves, but they don't. Yeah, that was a tough one. And so no referral, no due process. The zero tolerance deal, you say, you know, put the kid out for a year. Again, it's still zero tolerance if you offer them an alternative like summer school or alternative school. But the point, you know, kind of the overarching for me is, you know, this case is about a well-to-do kid, but we know this happens to not well-to-do kids all the time, and they don't have anybody advocating for them. That needs to be your role, to make sure that your teachers are doing the right thing and not taking advantage of kids like, you know, like they do sometimes. So that's kind of my conclusion on that. Our next case study is case study 3. Let me share my screen. This is about school finance. Now, in this case, I'll make this one easy on you as well. In this case, the superintendent is wrong. You know, we have equal opportunity offenses here. So what the superintendent wants to do is take state and federal and local money and move it to more needy schools and kids. Now, that's, you know, the student-based budgeting. But here's the issue. Is that legal or not? So let's think about federal money for a minute. I can stop my share again. Federal money has to follow the kid that it's intended for, right? So can you take the money that's intended for Michelle and give it and send it over to the school where Shakita is because she's more needy than Michelle is, or vice versa? No. Federal money follows the kids, remember? CTE, Title I, all of them have a head count. Exceptional children, all of them have a head count. Why is that important? Because the money comes for the specific kid. You can't we'll say, we'll give them, you know, we got $100 for that kid. We'll give them 50, but we'll put this other 100 over here. You can't move federal money. It's earmarked for the program and the kid. Cannot move federal money from its destination. So you can't take the federal budget. So can he move state money? Can he move that per pupil allotment that the state sends? No, Why not? Because of the Leandro case. 1994, the low wealth districts, 5 of them in North Carolina, got together and sued the state and said, this equal money at the start doesn't end up equal at the end. We want it to be equal at the end. You need to give them less, give us more, because the rich places can add more local money. And when it was decided 3 years after, a pitched battle in the courts for 3 years, it was decided that no, we will not change the funding formula. Not only will we not, but that there is no expectation that the money will be equal at the end. And not only will we send it equal, it doesn't matter how it ends up, you're not to make it equal at the end. You can't move it. It has to go where we sent it. You need to make sure that you look at that Duke Law decision and understand the plaintiffs lost. People think, well, they said they'd give them some money in the lottery. That was a consolation prize, which never showed up. That was the checks in the mail. I'll still respect you in the morning. That was just a hoax. That was a lie. The money never showed up. And when Judge Lee said you owe them $2 billion 3 years ago, they said, nanny, nanny, boo, boo, we're not paying. Wested has looked at it. I mean, you can dig into Leandro, but at the end of the day, the state prevailed. They did not change the funding formula. So you cannot move money, state money, except to the kid that it was intended to be for. Now you say, well, what? We can move local money. No, you can't. Unless it's in the budget. You can't move. Who do you have to go to? The county commissioners to get your budget finished. You have to give them a line item budget. Can you be moving stuff around after it's been approved? No. Can't move local money either. You say, well, next year we'll get it in the budget. You could potentially do that, except those county commissioners would never go for that because it would benefit some and not others. But no, you can't move money that's already been budgeted in the fall of the year. No, can't do that. So you can't move federal money ever. You can't move state money ever. You can't move local money. You can get it budgeted for the next year. Now, you could try to pull a shenanigan like the superintendent in Chapel Hill, Carborough. You can try to do what she did, and her finance officer. And you can Google this one. It was recent, 2021. I think I've got a copy of it. Anyway. Her name was Baldwin, Chapel Hill, Carsboro. So what she did, she had a deal in her district where she had up to $90,000 discretionary money that she didn't have to have board approval to spend. She had saved it for a while. So what she did, she knew she couldn't move resources from one school to the other. Now, Chapel Hill, Carborough is truly a tale of two cities. Chapel Hill is white and affluent, Carborough is not. And so she was trying to get some resources to the not side of town, to the Carborough side. Well, she knew she couldn't hire teachers. She couldn't do all this stuff because she didn't have the budget to do that, and it's illegal. So what she did is she entered into a contract with this consulting company where she contracted with them. They brought teachers in, and she contracted for $89,900 or something dollars. But it was over $1 million. But the 90,000 is the total period, not 90,000 every year or 90,000 for, this month or that. And so basically she circumvented Leandro, got caught. The finance officer got fired. They let her go out on health leave and fired her a couple of weeks later, or she resigned, whatever, a couple of weeks later. But the whole notion was her intent was to circumvent Leandro. She was taking money from one group of kids and giving it to the other. That she had no right to do, according to the Leandro ruling. So you need to dig heavily into Leandro, but you need to understand. He said, well, you get a basic education. They weren't saying that in a positive way. What they were saying is all we got to pay for is the basic education. We don't have to pay for more than that. And somebody said, well, how much is that? Whatever we give you, that's what it costs. That's kind of ask and answer. Okay, you said you're only going to fund the basic education. Well, what metric is that? Whatever we give you, that's what it is. That's what we say a basic education is. Wouldn't you like to have a job where you could kind of say, what salary you wanted? I want to be well compensated. Whatever I say it is. And that's basically what they did was whatever we say, whatever we give you, that's what a basic ed costs, whether that's what it costs or not. And so after a number of years, independent commission, West Ed was appointed to see if it was enough. And they came back and said, no, you owe them $2 billion. The General Assembly said, we're not giving it to you. We gave you the lottery that was going to bring, just like manna from heaven, bring you all this money. Didn't bring a nickel. There's no money coming from the lottery for schools, not instructionally. There's no allotment in that. There's only about 10 cents on the dollar left. Time you pay out the winner and the company that administrates it, and pay that idiot that advertises with that sign Tuesday, or whatever, all that advertising on TV. Time all that's done, there's nothing left. Some few opportunity scholarships for a few kids, which is not a bad thing, but there's no money left for schools. Lottery does not put any money in schools. It's just a regressive tax on poor people. That's all it is. And the General Assembly said, we're not giving them any money and you can't make us. And so their tab's up to about 2.2 billion now, I think, that they supposedly owe poor schools, but they're never going to pay. Again, the funding formula did not change. It's still flat. Every kid in North Carolina gets $8,000 from the state, period. Whether it's a rich school, poor school, doesn't matter. You've got to understand that. So this is a case where ethically the superintendent is trying to do the right thing. However, it's not the legal thing. This is to get you to understand that this notion, if I do the right thing, I'll be fine. No, you'll be fine if you do the legal thing. You're going to be asked during the interview process for an administrative job, if there's a law or a policy that you don't agree with, will you uphold that law or policy? And the answer has to be yes. Many of us vehemently disagree with Leandro. Full disclosure, I was on the legal team. I had finished my doctorate at Chapel Hill, and I was doing work out of the Institute of Government there with Robert Fay before he retired. We moved over to the Friday Center. I was on the legal team. That we lost. I'm still bitter. 31 years later, I'm still mad, as if it were yesterday. But I understand you got to follow the law. That's the one thing that in school finance, this course is law and finance, is that you have to spend the money as intended. You can't cross budget streams. You can't say this is the right thing to do. These kids need extra help. They do need extra help. It would be the right thing to do, but it's not the legal thing to do. And the whole idea of this case study is the highest office in public school, non-elected office, is the superintendent. Even the superintendent can't do it. Even the superintendent can't do this. You got to understand that. So that's case study 2. We'll do that next week. All right. So let me look down my notes here and make sure I've got everything. We've done that. Let's look at cyberbullying right quick. So your task this week on DB4 was to look at, examine school district policy on cyberbullying again. If only your district has one, your school needs to put that one in their handbook because it covers the school. What I'm looking for here is the steps the school can and cannot take in dealing with cyberbullying. You say, well, what do you mean cannot? Understanding you don't have warrant powers. That's why you've got, as Shakita said, you got to work with that resource officer. You don't have warrant powers. And without warrant powers on all this cyberbullying, all this technology, you've got nothing, folks. I'm just going to tell you right now, you got nothing. You need their help. You need an IT guy and an SRO to help you with this stuff. Now, I know everybody in the room is younger than me. That's understood. I'm the oldest rat at the barn. But I'm pretty good with technology. I'm good enough to know that you need an SRO and an IT guy. That's what I know. And so that's what I'm talking about. What can you do and not do? So because you don't have warrant power, you have to enter a partnership with your resource officer. You have to. Now, on the complaint about the 10th grade, female student harassment by her male softball coach, I don't care what, I don't say it that way, call the law. You need to involve police. You need to make the report to your Title IX people, but you need to get the police involved as well. Why? Because as soon as it turns physical, then it's more than harassment, and you do not want to be seen covering something up, minimalizing something, and boy, this is. Oh, I gotta be so careful not to say this. Women are a lot smarter than men, hands down. They're more perceptive. That comes in handy in a lot of times in life. Unfortunately, it's also a detriment that women feel things much deeper than men. What have we had a kind of a rash of lately in cases like this where girls were being bullied or harassed? What have they done? Unfortunately, they've harmed themselves. That's become pretty common. 10th grade girl, man, I'd be on the law quickly. I'd have SRO in. I'd have the parent, and I'd call the Title IX people. I mean, I'd be not. I hate to say this. My focus initially would be on her and making sure she doesn't do something rash. Now, if it was a boy, I'd go to the law because I'd be scared he'd come in and shoot somebody. I told you 2 cases of that I know of. One of my interns was standing there when the kid walked up at Albemarle High School, shot the kid, and handed him the gun. But he handed it to him barrel first. He thought he was going to shoot him. I'm not making that up. He decided right then and there he wasn't going to be a school administrator. I'm not making that up. He went to the central office as a testing coordinator. The last kid killed at Butler High School, and yes, there's been more than one, was a case of bullying. Boys tend to bring guns and shoot people, or knives and stab people. Girls tend to harm themselves. Either way, I want to get the law involved with me as quickly as I can. I'm gonna tell you right now, I won't be in on this as quick as I can get them in on this. Those kinds of things happen. You have a kid kill themselves or a kid get killed at your building, you're out of the business, folks. Nobody will touch you. You're done. It's besides the tragedy of the loss of life for a child. It's over with for you. Got to understand that. So I've got some documents here that support some of these things. You can do it. Here's the Title IX that I'm talking about right here. And here's the video, the update, and that change in law you better be aware of. Again, some of your districts, as we're seeing, have not updated their policies. You need to make sure that you understand that just because they didn't bother to update it, that doesn't absolve you from the responsibility when you get sued. Here's the update from 2021 about you can't be the same person investigating. You have to have an independent person, all those things. And then here's the Title IX video that goes with it. Bullying liability lawsuit. Here's this one. Right here's what I'm talking about. Right here. Girls tend to be killing themselves. This is from this year, folks. This is from earlier. This is from January, the end of January this year. This is, again, it's happening all the time now. Aware of a culture of violence and failed to protect their daughter. Didn't call the police. Trying to handle it in-house. They're trying to negotiate a settlement. They've already lost this. They're trying to negotiate a settlement on this. That's what's going on right now. Right here's the 3. They've been criminally charged. They've not had their day in court yet. This one's been delayed a couple of times. These 3 right here, trying to handle it in-house, have been sued. Now they've been charged criminally, not civilly, criminally. Because the law changed in 2021. Under the law, it's now, you broke the law if you don't do what you're supposed to do. That's part of the Title IX update. So there's that one right there. This is a wonderful It's taking a second to load. Again, you know I don't like to read PowerPoints. This is a really, really good one. Dr. Sane put this one together. Supreme Court rules, schools can be sued for failure to stop harassment. See right here? What I'm talking about, all these rules changed in 2021. Title IX, which is federal, and this one right here, this is the state one that goes along. That's the corollary to that. And it tells about what happened. A unanimous NC Supreme Court has ruled that public school students can sue their school board for ignoring harassment from other students that blocks their access to a sound basic education. Right there you go. Either the feds on one end, if it's sexual in nature, or the state on the other, if it's just basic harassment. Right here. Happened in Greenville. All these different types: bullying, harassment, cyberbullying, discrimination. Here's the cyberbullying statute. It has not been repealed, as I told you. Right here it is. Again, it's just Twitter wars on anything but there's the cyberbullying statute. General Statute 14458 and 58.2, right there it is. 16 reportable offenses, recent cases. Here's one at Stanley, all these different cases of what happened, what went wrong. Just telling you that this is a good one. Renita Griffin Jordan and Dr. Josh Sane put this one together. This is a really good one. You should take some time and go through this. But the important thing here is there is no such thing as handling it in-house. Again, you say, well, the people at central office will be mad because it'd be a bad PR. You didn't birth these children. It wasn't you. But what they're asking you to do is risk your career so that for their convenience, so it doesn't look bad for them. No. We follow the law always. We follow the law always. All right, I think that's all that. Again, let me see. I want to look under. Move out of the way. I'm keeping an eye on our time here. Leandro case, the facts on Leandro Duke law right here. That's the one you really need on Leandro to make sure you understand that one. And let me see. I'm just going to go to Google here. All you got to do is Baldwin, Superintendent, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, resign. Again, this is fairly recent. And you can read about what she was trying to do. And again, I would argue that she was trying to help kids that needed help. She was trying to do the ethical thing. The only problem was that she had a grandparent of a girl on the Chapel Hill side who happened to be a retired principal who knew the law, who knew you couldn't be moving money like that. And that's what happened to her. All right. Questions on harassment, bullying, all that stuff. Now, your school has to have an anti-bullying plan. And there's an example of one in the manual, that disciplinary data manual. It's got a link to one. You can go to that site, that bullying site, that anti-bullying site. I think the link's in there, or the web page, and you can get an example of one. You can download one. Some districts have their own template that they give you for your bullying prevention plan. But you need to find out whether you have to make your own or whether they give you a template in your district. But everybody has to have a bullying plan. And you need to know what resources your district has. Do you have a hotline? I mean, what do you have that you need to make sure that everybody understands? All right, let's talk about the skip. Skip is really easy if you don't go wrong in the very first thing. Very first thing is skip is needs assessment is it's not about anything other than gaps in communication between the school and parents, period. Your needs assessment is to determine the gaps in communication. You can look at your parent survey in South Carolina or your teacher working condition survey on parent communication part in North Carolina. That's where your needs assessment can come from. Easy peasy. You're looking for gaps in communication. Now, you have to come up with long-term goals and short-term goals. Please don't be that person who doesn't understand that long-term goals are not just an extension of short-term goals, just doing them longer. They're different. Short-term goals are things like using social media, having a Snapchat or having WhatsApp or what. It's using technology to better hook and communicate with parents. That's your short-term goal. Doing it, just keep on doing more of it for the purpose of just increasing the communication. No, communication is not the goal. Let me say that again. Communication is not the goal. What are you talking about, Dale? You said we're trying to take that communication in, and now that we're communicating, to try to help us academically by having academic events that parents might attend at our school. They won't attend if they don't know, or if you're not communicating with them. And so if we look at, let me share my screen. If we look at that, again, we find the skip team with collaborative needs assessment determine the gaps in communication to the communities. That's the first thing that you do. Then set of recommendations that identifies avenue of communication. And then finally, a set of recommendations that includes both short-term and long-term objectives. Short-term is based on better communication. What can we do? What technology, what activities can we do to better communicate with our parents? Long-term is now that we're communicating, what activities are we going to have at school that we can get them here for? Kind of the notion of help us, help you, help your child. Help us, help you, help your child. Come to family math night. Come to family reading night. Come to family EOG night. Come to family college fair night. Getting parents in the building. Communication itself is no value unless we can get parents in the building to academic things so that they can become a bigger part and a bigger influence on their kids' academic career. We got plenty of friends. We got phones. We can talk to anybody in the world anytime we want to. There's a purpose behind this communication. It's not just because they're our friends and we want to talk with them. We want to communicate with them for the purposes of bringing them in the door to academic events. Having them come to ball games won't work. If it would, back in the, what was it, the aughts? Yeah, but back in the aughts from 2000 to 2011, when Independence High School on the east side of Charlotte out in Mint Hill was winning all those state titles, they'd have had the best test scores in the history of school if it'd been about how many parents came to the school. They had 40,000 people at a ball game, 40,000 at a high school game. They regularly turned out 20. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. I've been in the business for 46 years. I've never seen anything like it. It just got bigger and bigger. It was just craziness. But their test scores didn't go up a bit. They weren't there for the right reasons academically. They just came to be entertained at a ball game. Family math night, family reading night, those kinds of things. Now, I'll stop my share. We'll come back to the second part. All you got to do in the second part is take either your teacher survey in South Carolina or your teacher working condition and do an assessment of school leadership, not teacher leadership, just assess school leadership. That's all you got to do. Just look at it and make recommendations from what you see in the TWC. What could we do better? School leadership do better. And it tells you this right here. The candidate will lead a team to conduct an organizational analysis to determine the climate of the school. It's cool. Those, the candidate will be able to evaluate school leadership and use the evaluation as about use the TWC or the South Carolina survey. And you make some recommendations, determine the strengths and weaknesses of school leadership, and make some recommendations of things that they could improve according to teachers. That's it for that one. But the biggie is right here. Short-term goals are communication-based. Long-term are education-based. What can we do with parents? Family math night, get them in and teach them, give them manipulatives, how to work with their kids. Family reading night, EOG. So the two best that I ever had that we saw immediately, one was a high school in Greensboro and one was a high school in Winston-Salem. I'll start out with the one in Winston-Salem. Parkland High School had a big conversion back several years ago, and a shift in their demographics to a much more Hispanic population. And so Dr. Wendy and Jonathan and Lisa Borer, they were my students at the time. I had 3 of them from there at Parkland. And they wanted to do something, communicate with the Hispanic families, get them in to, try to help their children. And so they went through all this stuff, and we designed this activity, and it was at 7:00 at night. It's a large high school in Winston-Salem now, folks. We had 4 parents show up, 4 total. I think they were all from the same family, 4. And we were just crushed. Did all this work, had put all the stuff together, had food and all the stuff. But the good thing is one of them 4 was Reverend Jose. He brought his family. He was the local pastor at the local church. He knew everybody and everything. He said, well, the first problem you got is buses stop running this time of night. You got to have it during the day when the buses are running. These folks don't have fun. And he went through all this stuff and he advertised it through the church. And we found the right person to communicate and got it in the right channels. Again, that long-term event doesn't work if you don't have communication on the short term. You can have the greatest event in the world. Nobody shows up. That's what happened to us at Park. Nobody showed up. But we found the right communication channels. I can't make this up, folks. You can call Dr. Wendy or Jonathan or Lisa, and you can. I think Lisa's in the central office there now. You can ask. We had 4 again, except this time it was 400. We brought 400 parents out. Their test scores went, Dr. Lee was the principal there. We became heroes. Not me. They were. Me, I was just mostly loafing. But it was amazing the path that it set that school on and how it changed that. But it's a perfect example of if you don't have that communication piece, you can have the best parent event in the world, but nobody shows up. It doesn't do anything. Yeah. 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 So that's one example of what we're talking about. You can do the traditional stuff in elementary, family reading, family math. Now, that was, that was one. Now, the one in Greensboro was at Northwest Guilford. I had 6 interns there at one time. Diana and Birdsey and Keisha Sinclair were the 2 that kind of organized this one, where we had a partner with Novant and had a job fair for health occupations. On each desk it said, this is the courses that you would need to take to get in this college, to get this degree, to get this job that pays this much. You say, well, how's that going to help things, Bill? Well, we had a special time where we brought all the freshmen and their parents in. This is college fair now. What in the world we got freshmen coming in for? What did I say was on that sheet? These are the advanced courses you need to get in this college, to get this degree, to get this high-paying job in the medical field. 2 years later, Northwest Guilford, Ralph was principal. Anybody know Elizabeth Kitley, the basketball player at Virginia Tech? Anybody follows basketball? Her father was Ralph, 7-footer that played at Duke. Ralph was principal there. Northwest Guilford, nice suburban high school, north and west, obviously, of the city of Greensboro. Within 2 years, they had the highest percentage of kids taking advanced courses of any high school in North Carolina. Let me say that again. Within 2 years of starting that job fair for parents, that college fair for parents, within 2 years, they had the highest number of kids, percentage of kids taking advanced courses. It changed that high school. They got those parents in, and those parents saw that. And so those parents started looking when the kids were filling out their courses every year or every semester when they were doing their schedule. They started watching what they were signing up for. Instead of signing up for basket weaving, you need to take this advanced course. You want to go to, you want to get in this school and get this degree and get this job. You want to be a physical therapist and go to East Carolina, you got to take these courses. And see, one of the things that, that we all understand, but I'm not sure kids do, is that different curricula at different colleges require different qualifications to get in. And that's what we were trying to get across to them is East Carolina. No, it's not Carolina, but if you're trying to get into some of the more difficult curricula, you would have to have basically the same scores if you got into Carolina. And so it really focused that school, but that communication piece, we did a really good job communicating, got a big turnout, had this thing and got those parents in there and kept it all week, did it multiple times, had a big dinner, Novot sponsored. I went to the luncheon as a guest, wore a suit. Yeah, it was a deal. It was a big deal. But again, help us, help you, help your child. What can we do directly for parents? And we call that in the business a back bounce. It's not directly like last semester when we were doing things directly, where we identifying weaknesses and putting programs in or identifying things teachers needed and train them. This semester, we're doing the indirect operational stuff. We're trying to affect our schools through the budget and the master schedule, not direct instructional programs. Now we're trying to direct, enlist parents' help to get better outcomes in our school academically. That's what we're doing. So this semester is about indirect. Last semester was about direct. This is what we call the back bounce. All right. And then in task 2, you simply identify the resources you're going to need for these long and short-term goals, and then what activities you're going to run. So let me share my screen. Yep. Funding necessary to accomplish short and long-term goals, human capital that we're going to need. Now, I've got a couple of graphic organizers for you. One's a short, one's a long form. Under skip task and prompts, there we go. I've got a couple of examples for you here. But again, there is no template for this.
It's under tests and prompts.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I wanted to show you is here we go. Now you can do the full one, or you can do just over through resources needed. On 2, 3, you're going to have to fill out the whole thing. You're going to have to put your whole plan in there. And then 4, you write your competencies. So for task 2, you're just identifying what your activities are going to be, your timeline, persons responsible, and your resources, both fiscal and human. Now, this is where I get all flustered sometimes. Fiscal and human. That means I should see dollar signs and people's names. Don't put teachers will do this. What teachers? I want to know how much money it's going to cost, how many dollars, US. As Randy Moss would say, straight cash, homie. I want to know how much money it's going to cost. And I want to know who's going to do it. If we don't identify those 2 things, it will never happen. I want to know who and how much. And if it takes extra people, we need a position to do this, then I need to know that. If we don't have somebody on hand that'll do it or can do it, if what we're proposing takes additional resources, then we'll have to hire a new person. But normally that's kind of stuff we have somebody's name. Miss Carver, the AP is going to do this. Or Miss Covington, the counselor's going to do that. I mean, who's going to do it? I want a name, and I want exact dollar amounts, how much it's going to cost. Then when we do the full graphic organizer, as we always do, I want you to remember the difference in formative assessment and summative assessment. Summative is sometimes, at the end, but formative is not just looking middle way. Formative is what are we going to do to make sure that this gets implemented with fidelity? Formative assessment is always of the adults. Are they doing what we plan for them to do? And then summative is, did it work? Our summative assessment, did we get 25 parents to come to our initial meeting? Did our test scores go up in the end? That kind of thing. But the formative, what checks and balances, what controls are we going to put in to make sure that we do what we said we're going to do? That's what formative assessment is. It's a fidelity check. So we do a needs assessment. We do it straight out of the parent survey in South Carolina and the teacher working condition in North Carolina. We identify gaps in communication. We set out short-term goals to address that gap in communication, and long-term goals, the events that once we get communicating with parents that we'd like to do to try to make our academics better at our school. And then in 2, we identify the persons responsible, when we're going to do it, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, who's the person responsible, their name, and how much money it's going to take. In task 3, we're going to add the formative and summative assessment, indicator of success, goal. Eventually we'd like to have 400 parents come into our events. If an indicator of success for the first time would be 25, though. If we hadn't done this before, might be 50. You know the difference between a goal and an indicator of success. Goal is where we want to get to eventually, understanding that, we can get up on the roof if we take enough steps, but we can't expect 400 the first time. If that's our goal, anything that falls short of that was unsuccessful. No. Our indicator of success would be 25, 40. So eventually we want them all to come, but we have to start small. We got to grow in our communication, getting people out, getting them involved. Now, I had a doctoral student the other day. What are you doing trying to get parent involvement? For the purpose of parent involvement, she said. No, parent involvement is just, that's not the end. They don't have a place on the report card where you get a score for how many parents you have involved. They have kids' test scores. But we're getting parents out to help us with that. We're trying to get a back bounce here. Help us, help you, help your child. First one I ever saw do it was the late Charles Thomas. He had a child that was autistic. He understood how hard it was. He was principal at a little small school, Sunshine. He started doing math nights for parents just like himself because he wanted to learn how to help his own child. They started doing manipulatives and brought other parents in. Next thing, it was just him because he had a child himself. Next thing you know, had everybody in the community coming out to these parent nights where they were learning. The parents were learning how to teach reading. The parents were learning to use math manipulatives, trying to help their children. Wow. Caught on, what an awesome thing it became. What an awesome thing. I often wonder if Charles had lived. He died not too long after that. Just freak occurrence cancer just struck him down in like a week's time. 44 years old. But I just wonder. That was one of the more amazing things that I ever saw. That's what we're talking about. We're trying to get these parents involved. There's no need to communicate with them. We just, the purpose of that is not to ask them how they're doing or, get on their Facebook page and not, we're communicating with them so we can get them to come out. We can do some things at school with them. Okay. Anybody have any questions on the skip? It's as easy as it sounds. It's not that long. It's not that involved. But be creative with it. What I love about the skip is that, it's the opposite of the OMA where the task one just kills you. And it's pretty much, everybody's got to look exactly the same. The beauty of the skip, they all look different. I love that. That's why there's no template. That's why there is no template. Because everybody's can be different. You can do anything from family math night to a college fair. I don't care what you do. I mean, I've seen all kinds of different stuff being done. Surprise me, do something different, do something special. If that's what you're led to do at your school. Yeah, that's the beauty of the skip, is there is no template. You just follow directions and, put it in the graphic organizer in the end so that, when you get to task 5 of the SOP next semester, you won't have to start all over again. You understand that they ask you to put all your plans together in one common plan at the end of your SOP, because that's what it is school improvement plan. That's task 5. And if you have all this stuff in different formats, then, a week turns into a month trying to get all that together. All right, Becca, you got a question?
Yeah, so the team that's required for that, how will that work for us, with summer? I'm sure it might be a little bit more difficult for some of us than if this was happening during a different semester. So how do you suggest us moving forward with just gathering a team?
You don't need one if you don't want one. That's the beauty of this. There's no template. If you can get somebody to work with you virtually online to brainstorm a little bit, that'd be great. If you can't, you can brainstorm. Your team can be one of your team that your case study team. That's a team too. You notice it doesn't say what kind of team it has to be. You can brainstorm with your team from class. You can brainstorm with some of your friends from school. It's not like when you had to put a PLC together and there was rules and you had to go through all that. And there was a template and all that. This team, you get to determine what kind of team you want, or even if you want one. That's what's so great about the skip is we don't have to worry about that stuff. No template. Bill, you got one?
Real quick, in task 1, prompt 2, I listed everything by quarters and dates, what we're planning on doing.
Yeah.
Can I just load them into the template?
Yeah.
And I don't have to write about each one, right?
No.
Okay, just do the template and then, okay, that's what I was wondering. That's why I was hesitant to start that today.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Yeah. Now, if you do that, it's just going to be proficient. If you want to accomplish, you always need to write a narrative. But if you just, if you're just trying to meet the requirement, that'll be fine. A narrative explanation is always good. I mean, there's 2 different types of people in the world. I hate to say this, and I've told you this before. There's curriculum people and operations people. I'm an operations person. All I want is the graphic organizer. Now, the curriculum people want to read the narrative. They want you to tell them a story. Now, y'all know I've been married to one of them for soon to be 40 years in a couple of weeks. One of them curriculum people that it's the bane of my existence. I'm married to an EDCI lady. They want a story. They want a narrative. All I want is just the facts, ma'am. I just want the graphic organizer. So if you just want to do the graphic organizer, that'll be fine. That probably won't get as high a score. It'll be proficient. It won't be as high a score if you write a narrative and then put it in the graphic organizer. It's that way every time. It's always that way. What's next? I'm looking forward to our next case study next week. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on Leandro, digging into that. Hopefully it won't take, we took 2 hours or so in this class, 2.5 in the other one last week. This one hopefully will be a little bit quicker, but I always plan on 2 hours while we try to do a little quicker night the night before. All right, Mandy, what you got?
So I think you've just confirmed. So we have to come together with another PowerPoint and
4
for
times this
case
semester.
study next week?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. But again, don't spend too much time on the actual making it pretty. Just the facts, ma'am. Dig into what Leandro means. I mean, people think, well, they said they were going to give them some money, but they didn't change the funding formula. They wouldn't have had to worry about a lottery or giving money extra if they'd have changed the funding formula. It would have been baked in the cake. But they didn't want to do that. We'll that we'll give you money for basic ed. That never showed up. We'll have the lottery and it'll just be like manna from heaven. No, not at all. No money from the lottery. That's
Other
kind of
question
like
that I have is when you post these videos, can you remind, because I want to go back and rewatch this one. So where can I find that?
they're under that week, first thing. So if you go back to we'll close that one. So if you go back to module 1, module 1. As soon as you click on that, see this is the link, right? That means link right there. There's that video. And then when you get to module 2, it'll be right there. And then module 3, it'll be right there. Or it's there somewhere. There it is. They won't stay in, as you can see, they won't stay in place. If it's not exactly where I left it, it'll be close. It'll be underneath that. All right, I got it back in place. And then one from last week. Did I go too far? Yeah, I went too far. The one from tonight will be under module 5. It'll go right here. Module 4 should be right here. And there it is. Case study 1. So you can see I put them under the week that I record them. That's the first thing. If they'll stay there, I put them there. Is where the video is every week. And I have it there. I'll have it there within an hour or so tonight. I'll try to get them there as quickly as I can. That's a priority. Michelle?
This is a clinical question. I am finishing up my log and I have like well over 100 right now. But my OMA, I'm not finished with it yet. Can part of my OMA be on one log and part of it be on another?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. And that is 40 hours for that?
Mm-hmm.
45. Okay. And it's part of the 100.
Yes.
Okay. Making sure.
Yep. 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 You get 40 in the summertime. And as crazy as it sounds, if you get your time this summer, start another log because you got to get 200 in the fall. But it's a lot easier to get 200 in the fall than it is 100 in the summer. A lot easier. But yeah, once you get your log done, you can move on. Other questions? Again, I enjoy reading your work. You always have things that catch my eye that you picked up on that remind us of certain things. We've talked about it, but so there's value in these posts and the activities that you're doing. Next week, you're going to be looking at discipline. We'll get to it the week after the case study. I like for you to talk to that AP that's in the trenches or that dean of students that's pretty much all they're doing is discipline. Now, I'm not telling you that everything they tell you is wisdom that you ought to take to the bank. What I'm telling you is you get a lot of information from them. You understand the information has no value. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. But truthfully, about half of what they tell you is completely bad. You're supposed to be smart enough to know which the bad half is. But that's why I like for you to talk to APs, because they generally hadn't got polished enough politically to say the right things. They say what they actually do or don't do. And that's good. That's good experience for all of us to know that, you know, sometimes that we learn more from the bad example than the good example. And so that's why I like for you to talk to that AP that processes discipline, because a lot of times unknowingly they'll tell you the truth, and it's like, oh, I can't believe they're doing that. I don't think you should do that. And you do a little research, and you find out, well, I shouldn't be doing that at all. But if all you ever see is people who do best practices, you don't know what bad stuff is. It's just like student teaching. You know, we find sites, you know, cooperating teachers who are the best teacher in the building. Most of the kids that come in and student teach with them don't even know there's such a thing as classroom management till they get their real job. Okay. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, my wife had, you know, was a CNI person, and she had a laboratory classroom there on the campus of Davidson College with all them little bright kids. I told you they were so smart. You had to keep them out of the sunlight. Their glasses were so thick, if the sunlight hit them, they'd set their paper on fire on their desk. That's the smartest kids you've ever seen. And it was a lab school, and all the kids from Davidson College that needed community service hours came over and worked with the kids. There at that college. My wife would have student teachers. They didn't even know there was such a thing as classroom management. Between the population of kids that they had and my wife being small and mean enough to live with me, oh, good Lord. There was never a peep out of any of them kids. Never. They didn't even know what her student teachers didn't even know what classroom management was. Wasn't a thing. But in the real world, that's not true. And so one of the things that, you know, really and truly, you need to put kids in a place where they can see teachers struggle and learn some classroom management. That's why North Carolina now says that kids have to be in Title I schools or that kind of school at some point during their clinical experience. Doesn't have to be student teaching, but sometime during their practicum or their observation, sometime during that 2 or 3, I think it's 3 semesters, they've got to be someplace where they see somebody that is not just perfect. So the whole notion on discipline for me in DB5 is I want you to be the person that's in the trenches. And some of the stuff they may tell you, you say, oh, that's interesting, and you nod your head. Now you think, well, I wouldn't do that on the bed. But that's good stuff. You learn what not to do. I hate to be ugly, but that's just the truth. I'm trying to send you somebody that might inadvertently tell you some things that you need to know and remember. I should not be doing that. That's good experience. That's about as good as it gets there. All right, Becca's got another student online with us tonight. I hate it when children have more hair than me. All right, I'll see y'all next week. Give yourself a hand. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I have